Does the keto diet cause insulin resistance? Part 4. So there is a certain mechanism that happens in the body when you eat that a lot of people are unaware of, even a lot of doctors. It's called the cephalic stage of digestion. When you eat food, you will always spike insulin for a full meal. So you spike a lot of insulin, even if you're eating a little snack, and you have 2 spurts of insulin. Not just one, you have 2. One as soon as you put food in your mouth. Sometimes even just smelling food or thinking about food can cause this little cephalic stage of insulin release. It's a small spike of insulin. If you have a CGM that keeps track of your sugar levels, you may see that when you start eating, your sugar will dip a good 10, 20 points in the first half an hour or so, and before it starts to go back up. That is the cephalic stage of insulin. It happens to all humans and even animals. They have this release of insulin at the very, very beginning. When you've been low carb or keto or carnivore for a while, you lose that first phase of insulin, but not permanently, just temporarily. If your body is not needing that much insulin, because if you have too much insulin, it's going to cause hypoglycemia, your body down-regulates something that it doesn't need. So if you don't need as much insulin because you're not consuming as much carbs, then you lose that first phase insulin temporarily until you eat carbs again. If you've ever done a glucose tolerance test and you've been low carb for a while, your doctor may have told you, please carb load before doing this test. For a couple of days, eat some carbs. Why? Because if you go immediately from eating low carb to the glucose tolerance test where you're consuming straight glucose, you're going to spike really high sugar because you've downgraded that first insulin phase production. So if you eat carbs for a few days before you do the glucose tolerance test, you won't have that high spike that will cause you to fail the glucose tolerance test. So this is what happens when you start eating carbs again. That insulin production, that first phase insulin, will come back, but it takes a few days to get that up there. I'm not sure exactly how long of a time it takes, but at least a few days. From the instructions that I've been given when doing a glucose tolerance test, you always want to carb load a little bit before the test so that you don't spike like crazy. And this is what's happening to a lot of people. They're thinking, oh, my sugar is going through the roof, and it's never been this high before, and it's because of they're thinking it's because of the keto diet has made them insulin resistant, but the high sugar is not insulin resistance. If they check their insulin levels are great. So it's not insulin resistance. Insulin resistance always comes with high insulin levels. So at number 4, we're going to talk about elevated A1C. Same situation where you're spiking higher because of the lack of the cephalic stage of insulin release, but there's one more aspect that people do not understand. So I'll talk to you in that next video.